television highlights of the news of yesteryear.
Spread of the sit-down strike. It's January 1937, and idle Flint, Michigan auto workers have occupied this struck plant for 6 days. Sitting doesn't pay. Friends and relatives are allowed to visit at specified times, but in the main, they're outside looking in. Employers can go hang, and some do, but just in effigy. Strikers occupy 8 factories now, and a Genesee County deputy sheriff reads court order for evacuation, but the workers sit. The strike drags on. Days pass. Tension grows. Outbreak of violence is imminent. Workers prepare to oppose National Guard guns with this ammunition of their own. Pickets 20,000 strong join the locked-in workers' cause. Threats of violence are forgotten as strikers cheer their sympathizers and word comes that negotiations for settlement are underway. But peace talk lasts a scant 5 minutes. Nothing accomplished. As sympathizers march, Michigan's Governor Frank Murphy goes to Washington, but days of conferences net the same result: failure. Strike by sit-down spreads. In Detroit, hotels are hit. Again, threats of violence. Again, the law stands by in readiness. Again, neither side accepts compromise. All's well with the sitting workers, though. Inside, they don't have a thing to worry about but getting paid. But who wants pay for this? The hotel is all theirs, lock, stock, and kitchen. While arbitrators, hotel owners, and guests are in a stew, striking busboys and bellhops help themselves to a turkey dinner. Hotel guest explorer Osa Johnson gets a lift in the arms of the law as sitting strikers bring service to a standstill. Songstress Ethel Chute gets nowhere trying to enter strike-bound hotel. Turned away, she retaliates by going on a sit-down strike of her own. Strike by sit-down spreads to packing plants, but this time police take over. Court orders demand the plant be evacuated, and the law goes in to force struck workers out. Their siege of sitting over, workers under arrest are escorted from shutdown plants and hauled away in one of the longest lines of Black Mariahs man has ever seen. In the heart of Detroit, the 17th day of the strike, workers and sympathizers mass to demand action or arbitration. The sit-down is costing employers and employees $1 million a day. Then strike leader Homer Martin appears. The cheers are for his promise of sure victory, for it's that or nothing. Workers will sit down till employers give up. A sit-down both sides are glad to see. John L. Lewis and Walter P. Chrysler meet with Governor Murphy. And that handshake means the strike that shook a nation is over. It's now February 11th, and a sit-down strike of over 40 days is at an end. After 6 weeks of stoppage, workers will again turn the wheels of industry. After 6 long weeks of idleness, it's home today and back to work tomorrow.
The champion feeds his chicks. It's the middle 1920s, and Jim Jeffries, king of prize fighters, from 1899 to 1906, is a prize farmer. On his Burbank, California ranch, Jeffries keeps active. Jim Corbett, first champion to fight with gloves, pays his pal Jeffries a friendly call. The talk is of old times and fights. Gentleman Jim Corbett topped all heavyweights from 1892 to 97, lost to Bob Fitzsimmons. Jeffries ran out of opponents, abandoned the title. Yesterday's newsreel presents the 2 pugilists who even to this day are considered among the greatest prize fighters of all time. Jim Jeffries works while pal Jim Corbett walks.
We're in London in the early 1900s, and there are as many horses as Henrys on good old Piccadilly. But horse-drawn vehicles are on the way out. And in 1916, the last one made its final trip. It's few steeds among many motors now, as London bids farewell to horse-drawn vehicles for now and forever.
Oliver Wendell Holmes in 1930, then oldest member of the U.S. Supreme Court, poses on his way to see President Herbert Hoover. At the White House, here he is with Chief Justice Hughes. Almost 90, the barrister from Boston was still making American history the American way.
The mistress of sophisticated slapstick, B. Lilly, in 1928. B proves you can eat your apple and have it too. See what I mean? Bravo, B.
Rich man's son drops money for music. Son of banker Otto Kahn, Roger Wolf Kahn, leads his own orchestra. It's the early 1930s, and this young disciple of George Gershwin is big with the baton. This beats banking, he says, and Roger not only made music, but music made Roger. $30,000 a year.
Dooms a dirigible. The crew of the British R-101 gets set for a first and final flight, destination disaster. Among the doomed is British Air Minister Thompson, center. In Cardington, England, 1930, most of these men have a date with death. But in the elevator up the mooring mast, there's no hint of the Holocaust to come. From mast to ship, the crossing spans into another world. The R-101 is off on its maiden journey. First stop on the schedule, Italy. But fate is flying too. Beauvais, France, next morning. This was the pride of Britain's Air Force, the world's mightiest aircraft. Now a charred mass of metal and motors. In the torn and twisted wreckage, 47 dead. Stunned British officers who inspect the remains search for the cause of disaster that flung the Queen of Britain's Air Force from the skies and sent nearly 100 of her crew on the long last voyage.
There's not a Dodger on base, but the scene is Brooklyn. The event, a shoe fashion show in 1920. Them bums never put on a show like this. Bless her pointed little toes and her elegant brocade evening slippers. Guess who, Clementine or Cinderella, in these long vamped walking shoes? Even Grable couldn't be so able in heavy black stockings. Any relationship to the actual shape of the human foot was strictly coincidental. Back in 1920, Brooklyn produced 15 million pairs of high-fashion footwear like this combination spat style. Waistlines were even longer than toe lines. Definitely 1920 fashions were not true to form. Square toes and instep straps are not too different from recent footwear fashions. Brooklyn leaves footprints on the sands of time.
The twice-told tale of Tempelhof, Berlin, Germany, 1925. Tempelhof Aerodrome is the world's finest, the world's most lavish airport, too, by far the busiest in Europe, with 9,000 arrivals and departures, soon to zoom to 20 times that number. A mile wide, 2 miles long, it was world's biggest and aviation's best. The hub of daily flights to Paris, Prague, London, Luxembourg, Madrid, Moscow, Constantinople, Copenhagen, and thence to the far corners of the earth. This was Tempelhof, titan of aerodromes in 1925. (1949). Traffic at Tempelhof is different. Germans see planes of the U.S. Air Force bringing food to the starving population of Berlin, clothing against the cold of winter, coal for empty and idle stoves and furnaces. giant Tempelhof has to be enlarged for the heavily laden giants of the airlift. In 5 months, 93 million tons of food and fuel is unloaded on Tempelhof airstrips for a grateful people. In 1925, a lavish airdrome. In 1949, a greater Tempelhof is the lifeline between a world and a nation.
September 1928. Vincent Richards, right at Forest Hills, New York, is about to hand Czech champ Karel Kozelu first defeat in 9 years. Kozelu serving in first national tournament for pros. Richards' flawless backhand checks the sharp smashes of the Czech. Fourth and final set, match point. Kozelu returns the American smash. Richards' forecourt starts the cross-court fire. And then Richards' forehand sends the ball out of Kozelu's reach. The winner, Vincent Richards, top pro of the professionals. They're off and away in the 1934 running of the Hambletonian, Goshen, New York. It's the fourth and final heat, with victories already gathered by Princess Pat, Lord Jim, and Muscletone. Trotting's highest stakes go to the winner of this classic. Far turn into the home stretch. Leading is Lord Jim, second Muscletone, driving hard but hopelessly to close the gap. But driver H.M. Parshall won't be caught. Ninth winner of the Hambletonian is Lord Jim. 35,000 cheers. The champ of trotters walks to the winner's circle. Wearing a wreath of roses, Lord Jim is in clover from now on.
Television highlights of the news of yesteryear.
It's 1919, and here are leading investigators in probe of recently finished World Series. This is foreman of Grand Jury Brigham, and here are first films ever made of Grand Jury hearing evidence in actual session. Here's Rube Benton of Giants, who was once offered bribe to throw game. Mystery woman in case is Mrs. Henrietta Kelly. Even Giant manager John McGraw was among the baseball big shots who testified before the grand jury. Testimony of pitcher Edward Cicotti is said to have been most incriminating evidence. And when, after the famed White Sox fielder Shoeless Joe Jackson confessed his guilt, it's said that one weeping fan of his cried out, "Say it isn't so." Found guilty of conspiracy to fix World Series are 8 of White Sox team. And here are actual films of sensational fourth inning of first game between White Sox and Cincinnati Reds, with pitcher Cicotti a little too obviously being knocked from box. Something wasn't right, and thousands mourned the proof that baseball wasn't fully honest. In move to clean-up game, team owners in 1920 made Judge Kennesaw Mountain Landis High Commissioner of National Pastime, and he brought baseball back. But Babe Ruth, too, was a big help to the commissioner with his spindle legs, beaming face, and booming bat. Even when the Bambino hit a single, thousands cheered and thousands more fought to see him play the game. Here in World Series of early 20s, Babe blasts a three-bagger, and millions forget the White Sox scandal. And here's another hero. It's Casey Stengel of the Giants. And the McGraw men are victorious. For this time, the mighty Casey did not strike out.
It's June 1926. At Galesburg, Illinois, here's Ernest Vicknell's world's fastest bricklayer in action. He paves road 100 bricks a minute, and it takes 60 brick carriers to keep him supplied. this looks easy, let us warn you that each brick weighs 9 pounds, and Bicknell's is not just a pretty good road paver, he's best road paver in the world.
It's 1921, and in nation's capital, firemen of City of Washington prepare to enter house filled with deadly ammonia fumes. Gases are often cause of death or serious injury to firemen, and lessons learned in First World War are being put to good use in peace. But in 1939, the possibility of gas in wartime comes again. Here in field maneuvers, real gas is poured over mock battlefield, and soldiers of peacetime get little inside information on gas attacks inside their masks. War again threatens Europe as the fall of 1939 approaches, and war brings with it a threat of deadly gas. This test is dangerous as real thing. Note that even cameramen at safe distance away from gas clouds wear masks. Yes, in summer of 1939, we hoped for peace. But if war came, we were certain then that gas would be its cruelest weapon and Adolf Hitler's most wanton killer. And as war threatened England in 1939, British babies, too, were prepared for the worst. Encased in gas-proof suit from head to foot, baby got air by accordion pump at end of one sleeve. War came, but gas didn't, though England was ready for both.
Here's George Gray Bernard, one of this nation's leading sculptors. It's 28th of October, 1930, and John D. Rockefeller has sold Bernard's studio out from under him. Bernard's reaction to moving? I won't do it. George Gray Bernard was great sculptor and determined tenant, too.
It's 6th of August, 1926, and here's lovely Lady Astor. With her cousin, Miss L.L. Abbott, the American-born English legislator sails for London, but not without preparing Americans for the coming visit of Romania's Queen Marie. Americans will love her, says this famous former American.
After a historic mission to Moscow, Elihu Root heads a group of dignitaries standing on steps of New York City Hall. It's 1917, and statesman Root poses proudly with New York's Mayor Mitchell. And after their unprecedented trip to the Kremlin, Root and his party prepare for a triumphant tour up Broadway.
It's the late 1920s, and near Carpenter, Michigan, here's a result of open switch. Error in clearance on main line brings two passenger trains together head-on. Wreckage of rolling stock is almost complete, and this is sort of accident that always means high casualties. Locomotives of both trains are wrecked and derailed by impact of the crash. Roofs of cars are twisted, sides crushed and pulverized. Wrecking crew gets right to work removing smashed trains from tracks, and service is soon again returned to normal on this wreck-strewn Michigan Central right-of-way.
Swinging down the lane from New York's Columbus Circle, here's toe dancer Mary Ritzel adding to traffic hazard on the gay white way. It's 20th of May, 1930, and Broadway hears the beat of Mary's dancing feet in gay stunt in Depression year. All Quiet on the Western Front is leading film fare of the day as Miss Ritzel completes her toe-twinkling tour with Big Kiss from Admiring Mama.
At Arlington, Virginia, in early 1940s, Walter Winchell gets American Legion Medal and gives a speech.
We believe that Americanism in its truest form is a message to all and not to the few. That it means tolerance and helpfulness toward our neighbors and not a restriction based on race, color, or creed. We should all be thankful that in civilization's darkest hour, our country is the land that stands for freedom, tolerance, and the dignity of man.
It's August 25th, 1930, and at Roosevelt Field, New York, plane in hands of 18-year-old pilot comes in for smooth landing. Flyer is young Eddie Schneider, just in from West Coast in new record time for junior aviators of 27 hours and 15 minutes. Eddie's proud to be flying in wake of his idol, Lucky Lindy. But on 18th of October same year, plane lands at Newark, New Jersey Airport with another youth at controls, and Eddie's record falls. This pilot is 16-year-old Bob Buck, here getting happy greeting from Mother and Father Buck. It's a kiss for the new king of junior flyers, for Bob made coast-to-coast hop in less than 24 hours.
The Buggy Day Bride. It's 1900, and everything here belongs to the horse and buggy era but the rice. That hairdo must be a good rice catcher. No self-respecting honeymooners in 1900 went anywhere but to Niagara Falls. Hey, are they going to ride in separate buggies? Oh, so this is what they meant by the carriage trade. Just look at that old-fashioned valise. Careful you don't crush it with those heavy blows. Well, it's sturdier than we thought, twice as sturdy. Hey, you fell for each other to see the fall. So look at them.
It's 27th of August, 1927, and 39 swimmers plow waters of the Potomac at Washington, D.C. in annual 3-mile swim. Race is with the current, so pace is swift, and canoeists go at merry clip to keep up with the swimmers. The sun goes down as end of the grueling marathon nears. Representing New York Athletic Club, 16-year-old Ray Ruddy takes an early lead and wins race. Young Ruddy won't put water in that cup. He's seen enough of it today. Winner Ruddy, center, poses proudly with fellow members of New York Athletic Club who took Marathon's first 5 places. Higher and higher. It's 30th of July, 1930, and here are speeding autos entered in 12-mile climb to the top of Colorado's Pikes Peak. It isn't only speed that counts, it's how you maneuver around those hairpin turns. One slip and you start over again at the bottom. Thereafter, winner's laurels in National Hill Climb. And here's view of Glenn Schultz, eventual winner, in motion. Schultz's Lucky 11 takes a turn, and contender 15 makes part of the mountain fly. Looks as if everybody's in a hurry, but nobody climbs Pikes Peak any faster than Speedy.
Television highlights of the news of yesteryear. Finale in the Fall of France.
It's June 1940, and German tanks roll across the flatlands of France toward the Channel and new victories. Shells from nearby German guns had heralded their advance, blasting and burning Allied equipment, and so sudden and fierce is the attack that wrecked Allied machinery of war slows down the Nazi advance. But the Huns roll on to Dunkirk. High overhead, hastily mustered French pilots fight a losing battle. German planes machine gun Allied troops who are trapped hopelessly between gunfire and the sea and wait for aid or death. It's all over for this British Spitfire as German power in the air knocks out another defender of Dunkirk. German cameras made these pictures of German conquest. Here the dock area, a mass of twisted steel. Germans drag anti-tank guns into position for a counterattack which doesn't come. At the waterfront, battered Allied evacuation ships that didn't make it and Allied equipment abandoned in defeat crowd and clutter the beaches. French defenders, for the most part, stayed so that parts of British regiments might escape and come back to fight another day. Concentration camps await these prisoners. Nazi troops turn from devastated Dunkirk and make a move that surprises the world. England, just across the Channel, seems in easy reach, but the swing is south toward Paris and the heart of France, and all resistance is smashed. First the Marne, where the Hun was halted in World War I, but now opposition is only sporadic and confined to house fighting. Nature's last bulwark before Paris is no obstacle as Nazi troops reach the waters of the Marne, where the war in 1918 bogged down to a stalemate. The steady drive of armored columns is swift and easy. Buildings fired by retreating French troops light the smoke-filled way. All the French leave the invading Hun is the scorched earth and ruins. Victory behind, Paris ahead, as the Nazi hordes roll on toward the capital of France and the Eiffel Tower, symbol of the France of other years, other wars. Days before, Paris was declared an open city, and German soldiers marked this most unusual of victories, the most usual of ways. Germany's flag flies over France. Paris is at last in German hands. There's rejoicing in Berlin as these scenes are shown, for Hitler is keeping his promise to the German people that Nazi troops would march in triumph down Paris boulevards. De Führer's promise was no idle boast. The Compiègne railway car, where Germany admitted defeat in 1918, is the scene of German victory in 1940. It's 3:15 p.m., June 21st, and Hitler and his staff enter the famous railroad car to dictate the fate of defeated France. Goering is here, and von Brauchitsch, Raeder, Rudolf Hess, and von Ribbentrop. French representatives arrive to hear Nazi terms. For France are Generals Hunziker and Bergeret and Admiral Leduc. The terms gave Germany all of France, north and west of Tours. On June 21st, 1940, Herr Hitler danced to his own victory march, later to go down to death and defeat. '29's most sensational circus performer, Ugo Cecchini, one of 7 sons of a Peruvian painter, who introduced to America the breathtaking stunt of being shot out of a cannon 180 feet through the air. And here's the act that received such tremendous acclaim from press and public, the operation of which is a family secret. Now take a look at the human cannonball in slow motion. Hugo is in the barrel of the cannon, his brother Mario in charge of the firing device. Later, a sister Victoria did the act, but that's Hugo you're watching now.
in the cannon, Hugo Zacchini.
Yesterday's newsreel brings you one of the greatest soprano singers of all time, Amelita Galli-Curci. Shown here at a party for kindergarten children, Galli-Curci made her debut in Rome in 1909. Her American successes began in Chicago in 1916.
This is Dr. Charles Mayo in light suit, who with his brother Will founded the famous Mayo Clinic. In 1922, when these pictures were made, Dr. Mayo was in Washington to attend the ailing Mrs. Warren Harding. Dr. Sawyer, Boone, Mayo, all of whom were called in to help the president's wife in her fight for life. Dr. Mayo founded the world-renowned clinic in 1914.
First ship ever to leave Chicago bound for Europe. It's June 26, 1919, and drawbridge on the Chicago River rises to make way for the Lake Grande, laden with wheat and bound for Liverpool. A series of locks which permitted the Lake Grande to pass through the Great Lakes and onto the Atlantic had just been opened. Chicago, located almost 1,000 miles inland, has become an international seaport.
Remember Jackie Coogan? Here's the kid with Chauncey Depew, the railroad tycoon, in 1918, just after the release of the picture that made him famous. At Grand Central, young Coogan captures the controls and becomes the envy of every boy in America. At Harmon, New York, Jackie is out to change locomotives and caps, and he'll help run a steam-driven train across country. Take a good look at Jackie Coogan, Charlie Chaplin's protege, who had enough money to retire before he was old enough to go to school. So long, Jackie, from these kids, and also from the Department of Wonderful Memories of yesterday's newsreel.
Forerunner of the transatlantic clipper. This is the Sikorsky amphibian plane constructed in 1931, largest seaplane ever built. Count Igor Sikorsky, who designed the huge flying ship, powered it with 4 850-horsepower engines. Transatlantic planes that followed introduction of the Sikorsky were patterned after the model you are now watching, photographed on its very first flight. Test flights between Miami and Cuba followed shortly after these pictures were taken, and plans for regularly scheduled transoceanic flights were made. But now, let's take a look at the controversial airship built after World War II by Howard Hughes. This is Hughes' seaplane, the Hercules, constructed at a cost of what was reported to be $25 million, $7 million of which was said to be Hughes' own money. This ship was to have been one of 500 cargo planes which could carry 700 passengers. The idea was sold to the government by Henry Kaiser, who chose Hughes as his partner. But November 1st, 1947 saw the 1-mile flight you are watching. November 23rd saw a test flight, and that's all. Headlines followed investigation of this project, and the amphibian never saw the skylines again.
Society's winter playground, Palm Beach, Florida, back in the 20s. Those were the days when beach fashions looked more suitable for a soiree than a swim. How to be grand on the sand with parasol and pooch. Society's pampered darlings preferred capes to coats of tan. Remember the dolman coat? Putting on the dog to keep the wolves away. The big idea was to shun the sun. Well, which will you have? Today's cover girl or yesterday's cover-up girl?
Here we go back to the Yale Bowl in 1926 to watch Coach Tad Jones' Eli Blues clash with Georgia. Yale's ball on its own 30 and an off-tackle smash is good for 7 yards. The blue again, this time in a pass play that's grabbed by a Yale end who's brought down after grabbing off 30 yards. It's another pass, this one a short one over the line, and there's no stopping the Yale receiver who legs it into the end zone for a score. Georgia fights hard, but Yale controls that pigskin. A full spinner and an 8-yard gain. Pretty deception, nets 5 through the line. The Eli's en route for another tally. Blocking brought the crowd to its feet, and a final Yale score brought the Blue to victory over Georgia, 19-0. Let's jump over to London now. It's 1934, and an international dual track meet's underway. In the mile, England's Jack Lovelock is favored, but Bill Bonthron of Princeton's in the race, so anything can happen. Lovelock is in third place, but watch him as he starts to make his move. Bonthron's in front as England's great miler sets out to take over the lead. Watch it. Jack did it. He's up front. Bonthron second, but there's Bill's last bid for victory, and it falls short. The tape in sight, and Bonthron never stops driving. It's Jack Lovelock of Oxford and New Zealand who snaps it across his chest for victory in the mile. To the victor belong the spoils and the close-ups.
Television highlights of the news of yesteryear.
Bandit at the border. Pancho Villa, fabled brigand who almost precipitated war between the United States and Mexico. It's March 9th, 1916, and Villa, at the head of 1,500 troops, crosses the border to raid New Mexico. Here is the Mexican marauder whose men killed 17 civilians and 8 soldiers in the foray. Repercussions were immediate. Soon the famed Texas Rangers set after Villa and his men. A few of his band were captured, but Villa escaped. These 2 prisoners from his ragged army remained in American hands, even as official Washington detailed John J. Pershing, then a brigadier general, to the task of bringing in Villa dead or alive. 1 week after the bandits' raid on New Mexico, Pershing took 6,000 men across the Rio Grande to find Pancho Villa. Despite the presence of American fighting men on Mexican soil, Villa, born Doroteo Arango, was not found. Border towns were militarized, and on April 15th in Parral came the incident that brought action from the Mexican government. A skirmish between our troops and Mexico's in Parral resulted in the death of 40 Mexicans. Despite official protest by Mexican President Carranza, American border towns became regular army centers. Buildings in Texas, Arizona, and New Mexico were armed, and the customs house in Naco, Arizona, barricaded and fortified. With the Mexican army called out, minor outbreaks kept Washington on the alert. In charge of U.S. censorship at the time, the man destined for our highest military honors, Douglas MacArthur. But back in Mexico, General Gonzalez of the Carranza forces in June attacked a Pershing scout force. Cavalry quickly answered the challenge. Mexican troops retreated before the American fighting men. Gonzalez withdrew, and a week after these historic pictures were made, Villa fled to the hills. The United States was to spend a total of $130 million in vain effort to apprehend the bandit chief who was to meet death in an ambush July 18, 1923. By November 1916, all that remained for a complete cessation of hostilities was signing of a protocol which resulted in the exchange of prisoners shown here. These captured Mexicans are about to be returned to their homeland. America's Negro battalions return to El Paso. Once again, Mexico and the United States are neighbors in peace as Mexican officers join ours to watch our troops return. The Villa incident was over, and one American soldier finds a special way to celebrate. Well, yesterday's newsreel has brought you history as it was made. The 1916 clash brought about by the bandit Pancho Villa.
As early as 1929, Germany was experimenting with tailless airplanes, one of the first of which is shown here in test flight in Berlin. You are watching a revolutionary aviation trial that 18 years later was to result in our own YB-49, introduced October 21st, 1947. Watch this plane and then compare it with these pictures of the YB-49. Here it is, wingspan of 172 feet, gross weight of over 200,000 pounds, with room for 7 crew members and 6 off-duty crew. This flying bat superseded the XB-35, first of America's planes employing this radical construction on a large-scale operation. The XB-35 was motor-driven, but the YB-49 is jet-propelled. Here it is, the climax of 18 years of experiment of tailless flying ships.
The early 1920s see the return to America of the world's most famous basso, Theodore Chelyapin. Greatest role for Chelyapin was Mephistopheles, sung at La Scala, but his American triumph was in Boris Godunov.
On the same boat is Met star Frida Hempel, born in Leipzig in 1885 and renowned for her singing in Traviata and Rigoletto, among other operas.
It's 1918, somewhere in France, and America's ace of World War I, Eddie Rickenbacker, is honored by General Gerard. Washington in 1930 sees Rickenbacker awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor by President Hoover. With peacetime aviation achievements to come, this is Eddie Rickenbacker. It's 1928, and you're looking at the birth of a landmark, the George Washington Bridge. Spanning the Hudson and connecting New York with New Jersey, the bridge took 3 years to build. Channel span of the construction is 3,500 feet, with total span between anchorages 4,760 feet. All towers are completed here, and cables are in the process of being strung. When the bridge is finished, it will have a deck width of 115 feet and will lie 250 feet above high waters of the Hudson at its center. The George Washington Bridge was officially opened October 24th, 1931, in a ceremony that attracted national dignitaries and state officials. This is Franklin D. Roosevelt, then governor of New York State, about to cut the ribbon that officially opened the huge span to the public. Climax of 3 years of actual construction work, this is the overwater link between New York and New Jersey, the George Washington Bridge. It's 1927, and President Calvin Coolidge is on a goodwill tour of the Northwest.
A tour which was to see him express his political intentions for the following year in exactly 6 words. Despite popular opinion to the contrary, Coolidge had an excellent sense of humor, and his periodic donning of cowboy and Indian attire was merely to give people a laugh. Here with Chief Wombo Tokaha of the Sioux tribe, Coolidge is made an honorary chief. This scene is Deadwood, North Dakota, but when the president arrived in Rapid City, South Dakota on this tour, he made the epic observation pertinent to his 1928 plans. He said, quote, "I do not choose to run." Most frugal of American presidents, it is ironic that the years during which he was in the White House saw an almost continuous bull market, factory productive efficiency raised by 30%, and general prosperity. Closing Indian traditional dance. Hail to the chief!
We're back to Missouri in 1928 to see what the St. Louis woman was wearing. Dress, as you may remember, was short, and curves an unmentionable subject. This is an afternoon dress with square neckline, long sleeve blouse, short skirt. White satin evening gowns featuring slit sides and one exposed shoulder. On the left is a short brocade coat with tight turban. On the right, a cocktail dress with full-brimmed chapeau. Ermine wraparound coat with white fox cuffs and collar trimming. These were the fashions of 28. Oh, great.
This is Winston Churchill in 1926. The scene is Rome, and Britain's leading statesman is on vacation at the baths of Caracalla. Churchill's comments after a visit to Mussolini: "I am a great believer in fascism for Italy."
The 1922 Walker Cup match. Darwin, British team captain, bangs out a long one. We're in Southampton, New York, and America's skull faces include Chick Evans and Francis Ouimet. Bobby Jones beats Roger Weatherhead, and Great Britain is defeated as America claims the cup. Later in the year, we're at Lake Placid for the figure skating exhibition. This is Hala Koslov doing practically the same stunts on ice that you see today, only the costume is a little different. Miss Koslov is going nowhere in particular, but she looks well going there. Flash finish of the performance. Not bad at all. Moving over to Bristol, New Hampshire, we find young Lynn Hill and some acrobatics. Skates are on his feet, so he walks on his hands. Maybe it's easier that way. Whoops. Careful, Lynn. Still the same lad in figure work and cartwheels, done this time the hard way. It's great, but I want to know only one thing. Why? An experiment known as the chair walk. I'm convinced, my boy. Yes, sir, Lynn, you win.